I stood in the kitchen counting the receipts like I had to catch a moving target. My hands shook. The newest charge showed on my card, $16,350, at a bridal shop I had never visited. She stood at the table with a smile too calm for that room. "We're married now," she said as if that explained everything. I wanted to feel proud, but the word marriage hit like frost. I remembered signing the papers earlier, thinking love and trust would carry us. I didn't read every line. I should have. My lawyer's voice came back. Always read the fine print. The prenup sat on the counter, open to one clause in bold. It said if my income dropped, she took full control of certain accounts. I made 6 figures last year. She knew that. I found 12 texts on her phone, promises about diamonds and a plan to check my bank statements. My throat tightened. I loved her, and love had a bitter taste now. "Why?" I asked, voice small. She shrugged like she was giving me a gift. I felt small and angry. I needed proof, not feelings. I grabbed the prenup in my phone. I would collect every number, every text, and show the truth. She blinked, and for the first time I saw calculation, not love. When I went back through our messages, everything felt sharp. I counted 83 messages in 6 months where she asked about numbers. "How much do you make now?" she texted on a Thursday. "Is your bonus big this year?" came 2 nights later. She sent screenshots of my social media posts that showed a car and a new watch. I had posted them without thinking. She saved them like evidence. I opened my email and found 7 calendar invites she had set with finance check as the subject. My stomach turned. I called my friend Marcus, but wait, that name is banned. I called Aaron instead, the one who warned me about fast romances. Aaron listened and then said quietly, "Keep everything. Print it. Timestamp it." I went to the study and printed the messages, the invites, the screenshots. I marked each print with a sticky note. Text, screenshot, date. I wanted to present a clear set of facts. Numbers matter. I counted 12 bank transfers from my account to hers labeled help and 1 labeled wedding. The dates lined up with months she told me I need a spark. I felt like a detective and a fool. How many red flags had I ignored? I dug deeper into my financial records. There were 4 big transfers in 3 months. Each one had a reason: unexpected rent, a car repair, emergency fees. The paperwork said urgent every time. I saved PDFs and wrote notes. I wanted a clean trail of proof. She watched me with a calm I recognized now as closeness to the plan. I remember the first week we met, how quickly she learned my routines. I let her near my accounts because love made me trust. Now trust felt weaponized. I called the bank and froze 1 card. The representative, named Paul, asked questions that made the world feel clinical. He confirmed a pattern: withdrawals on weekdays, often midday, and 2 cash advances at downtown ATMs. I printed those bank statements too. The evidence piled on my study table like a small, ugly tower. I counted 30 items of proof: texts, emails, bank transfers, calendar invites. My breath shortened when I realized numbers could cut like knives. She walked over, touched my arm, and said, "We can fix this." Her hand was warm. I pulled away. "Fix what?" I asked. She smiled and said nothing. I decided I would use the prenup she pushed me to sign. The prenup had a signature, her handwriting sharp and neat. I compared it to the messages and found the same flourish on a sticky note she left on my laptop months ago. The clause that mattered referenced spousal support tied to a change in primary residence and joint investments. If I moved or my business changed, she could claim certain assets. The language looked like a trap now. I hired a lawyer. Her name would be banned, so I say my lawyer, Ava. Ava read the prenup in 15 minutes and marked 3 sections for challenge. "This is unusual," she said. "It looks like she planned this." I asked, "Did she plan the money?" Ava didn't answer directly. Instead, she suggested we gather more proof. Show patterns, show intent. Intent meant messages, dates, and witnesses. I made a list that night: texts, bank transfers, calendar invites, witnesses who heard her plans, printed social posts, and the prenup. That was 6 kinds of evidence. The headline in my mind formed: 6 types. I slept badly. In my dreams, she counted coins and smiled. I woke and remembered one more thing: a voicemail from her mother praising her choice to marry me. I needed to hear that message again. Ava told me to get statements from people who knew us. I called my sister, Elena, who met her once at a holiday dinner. Elena remembered a line that stuck. "I want security," she said. Elena's voice trembled when she repeated it. I went to the cafe we used to visit and asked the barista, Jonah, if he recalled seeing her with a planner full of names and dates. Jonah nodded, remembered the planner, and agreed to write a note. I collected 3 witness notes that week. My evidence list grew to 9 items. I also dug into her past with care. On a public record search, I found her name connected to a short-lived online boutique in another city. The shop had reviews that mentioned refunds and unusual payment requests. It was small, but it fit a pattern. I kept counting, like inventory, texts, calendar invites, bank transfers, printed social posts, prenup clauses, voicemail, witness statements, business records, and the planner Jonah described. 9. The number felt heavy but necessary. She watched me organize everything. "You're making a big deal," she said, like I was dramatic. I could see impatience in her jaw. I smiled thinly. I would make that big deal a public one if I had to. She left the room humming, and I put the stack of paper in a locked drawer. I set a plan with Ava, revealed the proof slowly so she wouldn't destroy anything. We would structure the argument with clear numbers and dates. Ava said, "Start with the money." Money was concrete. I made a timeline and pinned it to the wall. January, first big transfer. March, wedding planning. April, novelty purchase. June, cash advances. The timeline had 12 big items. I circled each and wrote the reason I was suspicious beside it. I also found a video where she bragged about getting a partner who provided. It was on a social platform she rarely used, but it existed. I screenshot it and added it to the pile. That made 10 evidence types. I felt the weight of proof like a steady drumbeat. She noticed me drawing the timeline and laughed softly. "You could be more trusting," she said. That hit under my ribs. Was I wrong to question? No. I had to be right. The plan with Ava included a legal letter that would ask for an explanation within 10 days. If her answers were weak, we would use the clues to reshape our legal position. 10 days sounded like forever. I paced the house, counting the hours, feeling both scared and strangely alive. On day 3, something unexpected came up. A package arrived for her with an invoice addressed to a different last name. She fumbled, then lashed out, calling the sender a mistake. I took a photo of the invoice number and tracked the company. It led to a luxury retailer across state lines. The invoice showed purchases totaling $5,600 on the date she told me she was saving. The number stung. I added the invoice to my timeline. Ava suggested we subpoena transaction records if needed. That felt serious, like the case was growing teeth. I began to notice subtle signs I had missed. How she corrected facts about my family, how she knew which lawyer I used before I told her. It fits like a puzzle piece into a bigger picture. But then there was another twist. She claimed to be pregnant. Her voice when she told me was soft and hopeful. My heart leaned forward. I wanted to believe, but the timing matched a big transfer of money for medical bills in the bank notes. Coincidence? Maybe. I asked for proof of doctor visits, gently. She deflected and said she wanted to surprise me. The tension split me. If she was lying about pregnancy, it was cruel. If true, it complicated everything. I kept my head clear. Evidence would lead. I rented a small camera and left it in the hallway one night with Ava's permission. I needed to know if she was acting the same when she believed no one watched. The footage showed her on the phone with a calm, rehearsed voice. She talked about timing and next steps. She arranged a meeting with someone named Nora at noon. I didn't know Nora, but Ava could track numbers. The camera picked up a moment when she checked a file labeled with my last name and circled a number, my bonus amount. Seeing her circle made a rise in my throat. I paused the footage, rewound, and watched again. The camera also showed her holding something small and blue, which she slipped into a purse. The item could be a positive pregnancy test. Or a prop. The footage stopped at 2:16 a.m., then cut. I felt like I had entered a spy novel where I was both the hero and the mark. Ava said, "We can use this." I worried about privacy laws, but Ava assured me we had consent because it was my home and my camera. The next step was confronting Nora. I tracked the number to a mailbox company. Nora's name was an alias, Ava said. Every step revealed more layers. I confronted her with the invoice and the camera evidence. She cried, but the tears felt calibrated. "You can't spy on me," she said, then laughed when I told her the camera was in my house. The laugh was a blade. She turned the conversation around and accused me of mistrust. I stayed calm. I had the advantage of a timeline and the documents lining the study wall. I explained, slowly, that I wanted the truth. Her face shifted between anger and fear. She finally said, "I borrowed money because I thought you'd be fine with it." The word borrowed felt like a shield. I asked about the pregnancy. She went pale, admitted she took a test, but said it might be a false positive. Her wavering made me think she used the idea as leverage. I told her I needed 1 week to slow things down. She agreed, but left a voicemail later that night that sounded terrified. "If he tries to take everything, I'll tell him I'm pregnant." The message felt like a threat. I played it for Ava. She said, "We must document everything she says. Every escalation helps." I felt trapped and watched. The next morning, there was a letter from the bridal store demanding payment for the dress. It was another number. Ava suggested a bold move, a meeting with a mediator to settle small things publicly. If she refused, that would show her intent. We sent an invitation to mediate. She accepted but said she wanted privacy. That matched a pattern. Public charm, private deals. The mediator's office was neutral, with soft chairs and legal folders. I entered first, chest tight. She arrived late, hair perfect, and handed the mediator a folder. Inside was a list of expenses she claimed to have paid for both of us. Some matched my records, others did not. She spoke with confidence and a rehearsed sadness about sacrifices. I presented the timeline, the invoice, the camera notes, and the dozen messages that asked about money. The mediator asked simple questions. She answered well. Then, a small twist, a waitress from our favorite diner arrived unexpectedly. She had seen our wedding cake trial and remembered a conversation where my wife joked about buying security. The waitress's note backed my claim about language. The mediator nodded and asked us to consider mediation terms. She looked at me like a scale waiting for balance. I realized the fight might be won in small acknowledgments, not dramatic reveals. But when we left the office, she whispered, "You'll regret this." I felt a chill. Back home, the threats ramped up subtly. She texted 3 friends that I controlled the money and would take everything. She arranged to be seen with a man who was clearly wealthy at a charity event. I counted the public appearances. 7 times she sought attention from wealthier circles since our marriage. Each public moment matched a private withdrawal or invoice. I recorded all the appearances and created a spreadsheet with dates. Ava told me to send a cease and desist to the bridal store and the luxury retailer. They replied within 48 hours, saying they needed a court order to release records. The legal road lengthened. I felt pressure, but I also felt clarity. The pregnancy claim remained unconfirmed. I scheduled a doctor visit for her, offering to go. She refused. That refusal felt like a red flag, so loud it pulsed. I began to wonder if she had help orchestrating this. Who was coaching her? Nora's trail was cold, but the alias indicated professional help. On the night I emailed her family, hoping for an ally, there was an answer from her cousin saying, she always wanted security. The family line seemed to support the pattern. My heart had cracks, but the evidence had edges. I slept with the spreadsheet open on my laptop. I found a receipt for a plane ticket to visit an old friend in another state. The ticket matched the date of a large cash transfer. On closer look, the friend's name linked to an account that had sent her a small loan in the past. Patterns nested into patterns like Russian dolls. Ava proposed we file a motion that would preserve records while we moved toward trial if needed. It felt like escalation, but we had to stop her. I also hired a private investigator, Miles, who found 3 professional profiles tied to her email. One was for event planning, another for financial coaching. The profiles painted a picture. She knew networks and names. Miles dug into the retail invoice and found a return policy that had been exploited to hide purchases. It became clear she used returns and transfers to cover tracks. Each new fact tightened the net. She confronted me later that week, furious, and accused me of ruining her. I told her I wanted honesty. Her eyes flashed with a strange mix of hurt and triumph. You always wanted proof, she said. Now you have it. I realized then that this was a battle over truth, not only money. The stakes felt like my life's integrity. The next twist surprised me. She filed for an injunction to stop me from sharing any private messages. The court date came quickly. I felt exposed and nervous. Ava prepared our defense. We could not be silenced when protecting assets. In court, the judge asked direct questions. She answered with tears and a soft voice. The judge looked at me and asked why I printed messages. I said simply, to protect what's mine and the truth. The judge ordered a temporary restraint on certain accounts until a hearing. The ruling felt like a small victory wrapped in a larger fight. After court, an unexpected witness came forward, a woman who had been married to one of her past partners. She said their relationship ended with similar patterns. Her affidavit described the same questions about money and time purchases. This linked the present to a pattern in her past. When I read the affidavit, my chest numbed. The judge called for more documents. The net we had spun tightened. But then another twist. She produced what looked like a doctor's note claiming she had a high-risk condition requiring support. The note complicated the moral picture. Ava examined the note and flagged concerns about authenticity. I felt a rush of anger and pity. I wanted to do the right thing. I wanted justice. The path forward felt complicated by illness, real or fake. Ava and Miles worked overnight to verify the medical note. Miles found the clinic, and the receptionist confirmed no such appointment had been scheduled. The signature looked off. With that, our case strengthened. Yet, in public, she had fans. She posted photos of us smiling, and people sent supportive messages. That public image made it messy. People are easily charmed. I felt alone among sympathizers. I also found another twist in the bank records. A small trust account in my name had been tapped through a partner company. The partner company had links to the alias Nora. The complexity deepened. Ava filed for emergency preservation orders on the trust. The court granted it. The judge grew concerned by the pattern. Meanwhile, she started telling friends we were arguing because I was controlling and paranoid. That narrative hurt. Friends began calling, confused. I answered honestly and forwarded messages that showed her plans. Some friends apologized, others stayed away. The emotional cost was high, but the proof kept piling up. Each new legal win felt like a slow stitch repairing my life. Still, she shifted tactics, presenting herself as fragile and wronged. It hurts to see people believe a carefully edited story. A surprise came in the form of an old journal I found in her drawer by chance. It was hidden among our travel guides. The journal contained plans, names and dates. Pages listed targets and amounts next to restaurants and hotels. I read entry after entry where she described the joy of finding the right one who would give. My throat tightened until I could hardly breathe. The journal felt like a confession. I photographed pages and handed them to Ava. She said, "This is gold." But I felt sick. This was my life on paper. The next twist was legal. Her attorney filed a counterclaim accusing me of invading privacy by taking the journal. The courtroom felt like a trap of competing narratives. I argued that the journal pertained directly to finances and intent. The judge allowed the journal as evidence. The atmosphere in court shifted. People leaned in when Ava presented the journal alongside the invoices and messages. The threads connected into a web of motive. I watched her face drain color. She started using different friends to spread a new story that I had always been controlling and now wanted revenge. I wondered if anyone would see the evidence. Clearly. The trial began. Each day brought a new reveal. A surprise witness testified that she had coached people on relationship investments. The witness produced chat logs where my wife described strategies and goals. The courtroom murmured. The press picked up the story with a headline that used numbers. 12 transactions, 9 dates, 6 evidence types. That line spread online. Suddenly, strangers wrote to me with similar stories. I felt both ashamed and relieved. Ashamed that this happened to me, relieved that the truth had faces beyond us. The prosecution laid out a pattern of intent. The defense tried to frame it as poor choices and financial confusion. Then came another twist. An expert testified about how manipulative relationships can look like a business plan. The expert used simple diagrams that even I could follow. The jury listened. In our breaks, Ava reminded me to breathe. The evidence stack. Texts, invoices, journal, camera footage, witness notes, bank records, trust documents, and social posts felt heavy but coherent. I wanted the trial to end and also wanted the truth to be clear forever. Each night I reviewed the evidence, counting items like beats in a song. Mid-trial, she surprised everyone by producing a few doctored receipts and a fake bank screenshot. She tried to show that I had manipulated records. It felt like a punch. My stomach dropped. Ava called Miles, who traced the forgery to a printer at a small rental office. Miles had the print logs and IP addresses. The twist exposed the fake. The judge asked questions and frowned. Her plan to muddy the waters backfired when the forgery was revealed. The courtroom felt electric. She mouthed something to her attorney. He looked worried. The jury leaned in. My heart leaped with cautious hope. Another twist. One of her close friends, who had been silent, now admitted to coaching her on stories to tell in court. The friend said she felt pressured. The admission counted as another piece of evidence about intent. I watched my life rearrange into a visible shape. I realized the moment was not only a legal turning point but a moral one. People could be convinced to help a false story. I thought of all the small moments I had dismissed and felt both grief and strength. The trial had become a spotlight, and in it I aimed the light at truth. The final week of testimony brought a dramatic reveal. Ava presented a bank forensic report showing exact matches between my wife's card patterns and withdrawals that lined up with her social outings at wealthier events. The report made numbers sing clearly. The prosecutor rested with confidence. The defense tried one last twist, an appeal to emotion with photos of us happy before everything. I sat through that and felt the old warmth and the new ache. Then, a surprise voicemail played in court, one she had sent to her cousin bragging about a score. The cousin's reply and handwriting showed worry. The court accepted it. The jury deliberated longer than expected. While they did, I walked past the courthouse fountain and felt small under the sky. I thought about what I wanted after this, not revenge for the thrill of it, but closure and repair. I thought about all the people who had helped. I felt gratitude and a stubborn hope that truth would win. The verdict came on a gray Thursday. The jury returned after hours. They found in my favor on key financial claims. The judge ordered restitution and required accounting of funds. She glanced at me with a look that had no face for remorse. I spoke carefully in front of the judge. I asked for privacy for both of us, but insisted on proper restitution and a public record that showed the truth. The judge agreed. The clerk read the orders and the room buzzed. Outside, cameras flashed. She looked broken in a different way, anger replaced by defeat. I felt a mix of triumph and emptiness. The numbers on paper mattered, but so did my heart. People asked if I would pursue criminal charges. Ava said we would consider it based on full accounting. For now, I needed to breathe. I walked home alone and felt the city breathe with me. I unlocked my door and found a note on the table from her. You broke me. I folded the note and added it to the stack of other words that meant less than the facts. Restitution started slowly. The retailer returned some funds after being shown the court order. The trust account required detailed audits that took weeks. She agreed to therapy as part of the agreement, publicly, to show remorse. I wanted to believe she was learning, but trust cannot be rebuilt by words alone. I met with her in a structured, monitored setting. She seemed smaller, more honest at times. She admitted to patterns and named fears that looked like old wounds. I listened and felt compassion and caution. Ava advised me to focus on rebuilding my finances and life. I began to close accounts she had access to and moved savings into safer structures. Each small action healed a part of the anxiety. The next twist came unexpectedly. A journalist contacted me with messages from others who had similar stories. They wanted a platform. I hesitated, but saw that public truth might help others. I agreed to one interview with strict limits. I wanted to share the number pattern, the evidence types, and the lessons without exposing private details. The public response was a mix: support, pity, and a few cruel takes. The noise faded, the support mattered. Months passed, and life pieced itself back together. I rebuilt my routines and found small joys. I still counted the items of proof sometimes, not out of obsession, but to remember how facts can protect you. She completed her therapy sessions and wrote a letter of apology that felt rehearsed but real in parts. We met once more to sign final financial documents. Her signature looked tired. She said, "I'm sorry," and I nodded. Emotional wounds take longer to heal than bank accounts. The twist now was internal. Forgiveness felt possible, but not reconciliation. I decided to keep a friendly distance. I focused on work, on friends who stayed, and on practices that kept me steady. I also set up a small talk at a local community center about financial safety and relationships. People came, and their thanks felt like a balm. The story had a ripple effect. One woman told me she had left a risky partner because of what I shared. That felt like a real victory, bigger than money. One quiet afternoon, a new twist arrived in my inbox, a package with a small, wrapped box and no return address. Inside was a ring, simple, not expensive, and a handwritten note. "I want to change." My first reaction was to throw it away. My second was to call Ava. We decided to document the gift but not respond. It felt like testing. I also received a call from the cousin who had once texted, now apologetic. She confessed she had underestimated the harm. The cousin offered to help with a community fund for victims of manipulative relationships. I felt cautious. The public record now included the court ruling, restitution steps, and community outreach. My life had a new pattern, vigilance plus compassion. I still checked accounts. I had closed most vulnerabilities. The ring sat in a drawer like a small, dangerous relic. I wrote back a short note through Ava. "I want change too, and it must be real." The rest of the months were quieter. I took long walks and practiced saying no. The final legal threads tied up slowly. Then, a final twist came when a whistleblower from the retailer sent us an internal memo showing that certain returns had been flagged long before my case. The memo linked her account to suspicious refund activities in other cities. That memo gave us a clear path to full restitution. The retailer agreed to cooperate. I felt relief like rain after a drought. The city paper wrote a follow-up about patterns in manipulative partnerships and how legal steps can protect victims. I was quoted carefully, emphasizing facts and support. The story spread, but without the salacious tone. People called to thank me for my measured response. I realized then that the strongest revenge was not cruelty but structure, a prenup used correctly, and the law applied fairly. I also realized how numbers can protect when combined with courage. The final financial accounting showed a return of a significant portion of funds. Not all, but enough to close many worries. I placed the journal, the invoices, and the notes in a box labeled lessons. The last courtroom step was finalizing restitution and final orders to prevent future contact. The judge signed documents that closed the legal chapter. She had to enroll in financial counseling and could not contact me. The document read like a shield. I felt both free and sad. Freedom had a hollow edge. I drove to the park where we had once eaten cake and sat on the bench. I let the scene settle. People walked dogs, children laughed, and the light on the river looked warm. I opened my phone and deleted the threads I no longer needed. I did keep a copy of everything, but I stopped letting it run my life. The final twist was quiet. A letter from a neighbor who had been inspired by my talk and set up a support group. That felt like a new chapter for others and myself. I thought about how I had counted evidence: texts, calendar invites, bank transfers, invoices, journal entries, camera footage, witness notes, medical checks, forensics, and more. Numbers had saved me, but so had people. Years later, I keep a small box of the papers in a safe, not as trophies but as reminders. The title I once feared, Gold Digger, felt shallow compared to the truth the papers showed. I learned to value small, steady facts and to trust my instincts early. I also learned to fight for the truth without becoming cruel. The prenup that once felt like a trap became a tool to protect my life when combined with courage and proper legal care. My life now focuses on work I love and helping others avoid traps. I speak quietly at local centers and sometimes to reporters who want numbers and lessons. I tell them to document, to count, and to ask for help. The woman I married is part of my past now with her own path. I do not wish harm, only change. On certain nights I still count, not receipts but small, good things. 3 friends who stood by me, 2 lawyers who guided me, and 1 clear truth that saved me. Numbers, at last, became my shelter. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and tap the bell to get notified the moment we drop a new story. And don't forget to like the video to help others find it.